What does kindness mean to me? There's so many ways to think about what kindness means. I know our listeners don't have a lot of time, so I'll try to keep this as brief as I can, and I will actually use my hands to describe what kindness means to me. Kindness is Kindness to me is best described as what you do with a closed hand. Now, what I mean by that is sometimes when we do things for others, we do it with an open hand, meaning we're looking for something in return. To me, kindness, those are the things that we do with just a closed hand and never looking for anything in return. And that is to me the best thing about kindness is that you just do it. You just do it and you do it without looking for anything in return. It's just those acts you do with a closed hand. Oh, being nice and being kind. So I'm automatically going to times when we're talking to our babies and toddlers, whether our listeners, whether you are a in the classroom or you are a parent. When you say something to your little one around kindness, you often say, "Be nice." Be nice. I don't know if I've often said to my little one, be kind, be kind. I think I lean on the word being nice. And I think that's okay because those are those small acts that someone can do in the moment. That's being nice. But I think being kind pulls it apart a little bit more. It's almost who you become. You do those things daily. You're always thinking about other people. You act in kind ways. I think of being nice as those things you do maybe once or twice, but I think kindness, it becomes who you are as a person. Again, that's how I think about it. Hmm. I think the best way for someone to practice kindness is actually to start practicing by doing it for themselves. Kindness, when we think about that word, I tend to automatically think about what I'm going to do for others. And I'm just so glad that I've matured in my thinking a little bit now because I actually think if I'm going to be kind to others, I must first do that for myself. And then I can start to do it for others. I actually don't, I think that might be what's missing from so many of our environments. We're always thinking about other people. And again, I don't want to be misunderstood. Thinking about other people is important. But think about this. If I wake up in the morning with practices of being kind to myself, that will give me more energy, more desire, more wherewithal to want to be able to do that with other people. And so I think some of the best ways to practice kindness is starting with yourself. It'll give you more energy to be able to do it for other people. Mm, I think that's such a great question because I think when I put my teacher hat on, I remember bringing my children to circle and I had units on kindness. I really tried to do all the things. And I think that's okay. But I think one of the other better ways to do it is model it. You have to model it for children. Let our children see us acting in kindness and let's mirror back to them when we see them doing things to others. When I was a teacher, I always tried to have an earnest ear to where my teachings to my children were actually showing up in their behavior. So I remember one day I was doing a small group with my children and I heard a little tussle, a few feet from me. And I'm like, okay, let me see how they handle this. And they did such an amazing job. They used kind language and kind behaviors. It was amazing to hear. And so then I said to them, I'm getting my purse. I'm getting my purse, I'm getting my keys, and I'm leaving here. And they're all looking at me like, where's she going? What's going on? And then I just mirrored back to them what I heard them doing and solving their problem and being so kind to each other. And they looked at me like, oh, we did do that, didn't we? So when you teach it, you have to mirror back to them what it is, because again, they're little learners, especially for our little children, where they're figuring all of this out. So mirror back to them what you see, and as they get older, you still want to continue to lean into being a good example and showing them by demonstration. And then when you see it show up, celebrate it, let them know, and ask them how it makes them feel. And then ask them, how do you think you made that person feel? That's the circle of kindness. And it can continue through teaching and good modeling. Hmm. Again, I think when we hear the word kindness, it's always about what it can do for others. And I think that's fine. But there's also this thing called altruism, when we're being kind to somebody else, when we're not thinking about ourselves first, we're thinking about others. But the reciprocity that could happen there, when I think about someone else's needs before I think about my own, the feeling that is evoked there can be so wonderful for a person's sense of meaning and purpose. Again, doing it with a closed hand, just for the good of the other person, can bring about a sense of, I like to call it the warm fuzzies. You didn't go out looking for something in return, but maybe that person looked back at you and they just gave you a wonderful smile. That feeling right there contributes to your resilience and your well-being. When that person's maybe expresses their gratitude through a tear, or a warm hug. Do you know what those things are doing for your resilience? Again, I like to call it the warm fuzzies. There's something else that I think happens when we practice kindness, and that's community. Again, I dream of a world where kindness doesn't have to be taught, because it's just a part of who we are. Like I believe that is possible. But until we get there, let's think about what happens when we're kind to each other. I'm kind to you, you're kind to someone else. That kindness is paying off with someone else. The community that we create, that strengthens our resilience, because we can't live this life by ourselves. And so imagine just a community where everybody is being kind to each other. That kindness is causing a ripple effect. And many times I often say it takes a village to raise a child. And while I think that is certainly true, I also believe it takes a healthy village to raise healthy children. And just imagine when kindness is attached to health. Yes, that's what we want for our children. And so it contributes because it helps give us a sense of purpose and meaning, and it also creates a sense of community.